Here's another rewind video, and the theme of this one is fairly loose. You know, I'm just looking at moments essentially from the second half of the Apex Season 3 final, but Lunatic-Hai definitely did dominate on Escort, and they do. There's something about Escort. I think it's probably the fact that the focus of the map is constantly moving, and so there's always different unique ways of attaching yourselves in different positions or different flanking routes you can get, and teams have to adapt to the changing environment as the payload moves and the changing ultimate economy that they have and how the players are positioned. And Lunatic-Hai just seem to be better than almost anybody at being able to adapt to all of these different variables. And so they won every hybrid or escort map in this final to be able to eventually take the win, even though they lost the control map and both of the assault maps because they drew and then went to control. So they were able to take out the 4-3 victory in the end and finished it up with 2 maps at the end, which were incredible. Now, this one wasn't one of those. This one was, this is pure assault, obviously. This is Watchpoint Gibraltar, and it's potentially what this fight is what you would point at as like a misplay from Fissure, but I've seen tons of Winstons do very similar things and they don't get punished for it, at least nowhere near as heavily as Fissure is. And Lunatic-Hai is one of a kind in terms of teams that are able to utterly destroy very talented, I mean elite level top 3 to top 5 in the world tanks and divas, and just rip them to shreds and make them look foolish for overextensions. So let's see what happens in this fight. Oops. Turn off the sound. I don't like the sound. So his Kongdoo Panthera, they're on the defense. They're setting up because they know that Lunatic-Hai are coming back in. They've already repelled one push, obviously, so the payload is not actually there. But this is where they managed to get to. So it's really desperate times for Kongdoo Panthera. So they have to take this kind of aggressive hold. And Fissure is going to be... You could just see his toe step in there. I'm not actually sure whether you can because I've got some weird like diagonal crossover there. But that's where he was. He was up there. So he's up at the top, around here, just kind of dancing around, and you can get like a good leap over onto all of these people around here. So that's how they're going to set up their dive. They're going to play aggressively. They know that Jae-Hong's got his Transcendence, so they want to force out the Transcendence and then go for a disengage, because if they just allow Lunatic-Hai to come into them and they have the Transcendence, they're probably going to lose that fight, because they're going to give them, just allow Lunatic-Hai to take all the position for free without having to pop any cooldowns, and then they're going to burst out the Transcendence and they're probably going to win that fight. So they apply pressure instead. Fissure jumps from the place where I said he was before, like up top. He jumps over and manages to land and get a good dive onto everybody else. Look how much damage Jae-Hong's taken already, and he is forced to pop out the Transcendence. Kongdoo Panthera, Void comes in and peels for him a little bit. You know, Birdring's distracting. There's Void. He's peeling for Fissure, and the two of them are able to get a fairly clean disengage, actually. You know, Luffy takes a bit of damage, Void takes a bit of damage, but Fissure's able to jump back up top, and Void's able to retreat, and they've got a pretty clean execution there. That was well played from Kongdoo Panthera. You know, they didn't use anything really. They didn't use any ultimates. They got a free Transcendence out. They just engaged and got a really clean disengage. But here they come in for the wipe. You know, this is the killing blow. You've set yourself up. You've made sure that you have the advantage in terms of the ultimates potentially for the next fight, but Lunatic-Hai could still make this one scrappy because they've got the damage advantage. They don't really have the positional advantage. They're still on the slope. They're still kind of clumped up. They're still at risk of being dived upon in the same manner that you did it before, and this time they don't have the Transcendence to save them, but they have the health advantage because they've all just been healed up by the Transcendence, and they could make this fight scrappy if they wanted to. If they try and focus on someone like Void, he's potentially going down. So Fissure goes for another jump and tries to initiate. You know, so before he was up here, he jumps round the backhand side of this and lands and manages to force out Jae-Hong. They dance around for a little bit here while he waits for his jump to get back up. Void peels for him with the defense matrix. He gets it back up. He jumps up top there. They wait for the Transcendence to expire. Here's the killing blow. So Fissure drops down. He's got his ultimate. So he drops down. He gets onto people. Has he got Jae-Hong in the back there? I think he's got Jae-Hong, and potentially Miro is around there as well. So he's looking for the pick onto Jae-Hong, and Fissure gets shredded. He's in this room looking for picks with his Primal Rage. That's what he's aiming to do. And the rest of his team, and he's also going to buy tons of space for the rest of his team as well. But the amount of damage, the focus fire that just is so instant from Lunatic-Hai is crazy, because watch this guy melt I mean, here he comes. He jumps. Oh, no. I've gone back a little too far. So here's the Transcendence that's popped out. Fissure drops down. He pops out his Primal Rage right now. So that gives you a crazy amount of health. Is it 1,000 health? And he's into this room. Jae-Hong does quite a bit of damage to him. You can see that he's ticking up on his ultimate. Miro is also doing damage to him. Toby and Zunba turn around. Zunba does a huge amount of damage to him as well. You can see by the amount of ultimate charge that these guys are ticking up that they're doing crazy damage to each other. Toby pops out his heal boost, amps it up so that Jae-Hong stays alive as well. And they shred Fissure, and he dies so quickly. How quick is that? It's like, I don't even know. 3 seconds, something like this. Like, his health is just evaporating, and he dies in that situation, and that really sets up Lunatic-Hai for the pick there. And it's very different to how Miro uses his ultimates normally, because, for example, just to have a bit of a thought experiment, if we imagine how Miro, thinking of his style of Winston, might have done this, he's much more likely to do something like drop down, get a bit of damage on them, wait until he's going to die. So try and just do a normal dive onto Jae-Hong as they did before. Sync that up with, for example, maybe Birdring going aggressive rather than just trying to go in alone and buy space for the rest of your team. So he would potentially drop down, not pop his Primal Rage immediately, just wait and try and do more damage to Jae-Hong. Use the Primal Rage to just kill him, but I don't think Miro is the kind of Winston really that would chase people into the room and literally just try and get the pick. Because normally what you see him do is play like around outside here and bat people away and try and isolate a person once the rest of his team have already engaged, so that he knows the rest of them can't just like group up on him and slam him in a corner. But Fissure instead like goes into the room, tries to get this solo pick. Jae-Hong takes a lot of damage, but he's also getting healed by Toby, and they shred Fissure, and now they've got this pick, and they're able to bring it forwards, and they essentially just use a couple of their ultimates. They have Zumba's self-destruct on the cart, they use the EMP as well, and Miro gets his Primal Rage, and they're able to complete this map and win it. Mostly because Fissure provided an opening by using his Primal Rage in that sense. And here's another moment that I want to highlight, which I thought was very interesting, and is again on the payload map, and this one is on Dorado. Have I got it at the right place here? Yes, believe I have. Wait, have I? This doesn't look like the right place. Oh yeah, it is. It is. It just happens a little later. Okay, so this is Dorado. Lunatic-Hai again are attacking, and Kongdoo Panthera have already set. So it's very similar to the situation that we were looking at on Watchpoint Gibraltar as well. Kongdoo Panthera have already set a time, a distance rather, and it really wasn't that far. It was kind of halfway through the Foundry phase. So they've taken the second checkpoint, but they didn't manage to push it that far. Given there's only a minute on the clock here for Lunatic-Hai to push second, Kongdoo Panthera's best chance at a victory here and stopping Lunatic-Hai, tying up the series and literally winning Apex. This is their potentially winning Apex within the next minute here. Kongdoo Panthera should try and hold second, because if they give it up, it's very difficult actually to hold it at the same point as Lunatic-Hai were able to hold it. So this is their win condition basically. And they've lost 2 players. They've lost Birdring and they've lost Fissure, but they were playing really aggressively, and they managed to get a pick onto Jae-Hong as well. So this isn't too bad for them. If they manage to disengage and get back to the point and play kind of where Luffy is now, by the time they play back into this doorway, they might still be able to wait for Fissure and Birdring around there, especially given that they have their support ultimates up. So if Lunatic-Hai really commit to a fight, I think Kongdoo Panthera has still got a reasonable chance of being able to defend. And in fact, they've got a good chance of being able to defend here, despite the fact that they're 2 down. But what happens is they have amazing amount of pressure. So Lunatic-Hai know that they really can't take this fight just going man-to-man with Kongdoo Panthera. They know that they're down 2 support ults to 0. They know that they don't have the EMP live. But they do know that they've got these 2 picks, and that Kongdoo Panthera will be feeling a little bit tentative about it, because it's not a completely won fight for Kongdoo Panthera if they do full initiate with their 5 players here. It probably should be, but even so, they'd have to expend ultimates, and that's what they're kind of concerned about. So Lunatic-Hai keep the pressure up. They zip Guido in and it starts like distracting everybody, and then they have Escort pressure from the right hand side here, and Escort is the big deal because they haven't been able to keep track perfectly of the EMP, and the EMP is much more difficult to keep track of than the rest of the support ults in general, just ults in general, apart from perhaps the pulse bomb, because it generates so quickly, and it's more to do with how the enemy team uses their healing abilities and utilizes health packs, and how much damage you've done to the enemy. So you definitely can track it, and you can tell when it's going to be a fast EMP or a slow EMP, but it's more difficult. And in this position, Kongdoo Panthera think that Escort's got it. So Escort comes in from the right-hand side here, and that puts Luffy and Waka Waka in a difficult situation, because Waka Waka is probably just on the border of where he's going to get hit by the EMP here, and Luffy's well within it. And Luffy has a decision to make. They really want to hold checkpoint 2. So does he try and pop his Transcendence before Escort pops his EMP? Reminder that he thinks Escort has the EMP. So does he try and use it beforehand? Or does he just risk it for a chocolate biscuit and see what happens? You know, maybe they get EMP'd and maybe Luffy and Waka Waka both die and they end up just losing this fight. When Birdring and Fissure, are still arriving to the fight. So I think that is Birdring there. And I believe Fissure, I can't actually see his outline, but I believe he approaches from like this side over here. That could be him there. So because they had a couple of players die, and then the pressure is coming out here from Guido and Escort, and they think that Escort has it, Luffy actually uses his Transcendence. So Luffy uses his Transcendence here, and you can see that it's because of Escort, because there's really no pressure onto anybody else. Rascal's taken a lot of damage, but he's actually miles over here, and there's no way that Luffy uses Transcendence to catch him. So that's clearly not what's happened. And he doesn't take damage. There's nobody around here at risk. So Luffy, I think, has clearly used this because he believes Escort has the EMP. He's spotted Escort, and he wants to use it before this happens. Now, the metagame here is pretty interesting, and I've actually I've actually never been a fan of Zenyatta's just using Transcendence beforehand if you can't get something out of it. And there's no chance that Luffy and Kongdoo Panthera are going to be able to get anything out of this. This is purely a defensive Transcendence. They can't get picks onto Escort or Guido or Toby here because they don't have Birdring or Fissure in the fight. They've only really got like their defensive core, and Rascal's off doing something else. Perhaps if Rascal's positioning was better, this fight would have gone better as well. But the reason why I dislike this pop coming out here is because you have to consider the expected value, the expected return on the pop. If Luffy uses his Transcendence, yes, they stay alive and win this fight, but Escort doesn't have to use his EMP. Ryu, Zhehong, and Toby both come back in, and they have 3 very impactful ultimates against the 1 from Waka Waka. So that's what Luffy is doing when he hits his Q. He's setting up the next fight to be a 3 versus 1, which is not great. Now, what happens if he just holds it and risks it? Potentially, worst case scenario, Escort pops his EMP. They don't have to use any of the other ultimates. They don't even have the other ultimates, and they'll know that. They know that they only have the EMP. So Escort uses his EMP, and potentially they get the wipe on everybody. But they don't have Jaehong here. They know that a couple of the other players are like out. They know that Zumba and Miro don't have the most aggressive positioning in the world. They're not there. They couldn't really capitalize that quickly on Escort popping his EMP. So you got to look at the positioning of Lunatic-Hai here and say, are they setting up for a full commit with an Escort EMP? And the answer is probably no. And so even if Luffy dies here, even if they pop the EMP and kill Luffy, Birdring and Fissure are going to come back in. Waka Waka's probably going to survive here, might get chased down by Guido. Even if they lose both of their supports, it's still going to be a close fight that Kongdoo Panthera are probably going to lose eventually. So it's not great for him even if he does hold on, but that relies on it being the worst case scenario for them. If he holds onto it and Lunatic-Hai fuck up in some way, then he's actually got massive positive out of this, because he's won like the bluff. He's managed to double bluff Escort, and he might have also mistracked the ultimate. And so in a couple of these situations, it's better to hold the ultimate. And in only one situation, really, where you really think that they're just going to use the EMP to win the fight, is it better to pop the Transcendence? And even then, you actually need to get something for it, and they don't. And so Luffy uses his Transcendence. Here's Zumba's positioning over here. They manage to move forwards. Rascal stays alive as well. I'm not actually sure whether that was anything to do with the Transcendence or whether he just managed to get a health kit. I believe that's him messing around over there. But Lunatic-Hai have been able to disengage very effectively there, and Luffy wasn't able to get... Really, the whole team weren't able to get anything out of that Transcendence. It was just wasted. It was just kind of a panic pop because he thought that Escort had his ult, mistracked it, and they've popped it. And it was like, it was weighed up in his head. It wasn't literal panic, but it's put them in a really bad situation because now Jaehong and Toby have the ult advantage in terms of their 0.5 of an ult, and Luffy's at 0. So for the next fight... Waka Waka doesn't get 2 ults if he just waits. He's literally just capped at 1. And so at some point here, Jaehong and Toby are going to have 1 ult each, and Waka Waka's only going to have 1 ult, and Luffy's only going to be at half an ult, and that half an ult is 0 ults, essentially. If the fight's forced. And Escort is going to have his up as well, because EMP actually wasn't popped in that situation, It was just the threat of the EMP popped it. So they're able to get a really good disengage. Rascal dies because his positioning was aggressive. Too aggressive, rather. But now Escort's able to come back in. And this fight, I believe, is absolutely inspired from Lunatic-Hai. Because, whenever you do analysis videos like this, you're at risk of thinking teams are more cerebral than they actually are. You can read... You can read things into fights that don't actually exist in the minds of players, or might even be at a subconscious level in the players, and so you're like crediting them with more conscious thought than they actually had when they were going into a fight sometimes. But here, I really do believe that Lunatic-Hai played this one brilliantly. And I think this is exactly what they're going for. So again, they're initiating here and applying tons of pressure before they have the support ults active. And again, it's another bait play, and they're going to try another bait play with Escort's EMP. It worked so well the last time. Let's see if we can't get Waka Waka's ult out as well. But they're not just going to do it by the threat of the EMP, because you'd have to be like full-on stupid as a Lucio to use your sound barrier before an EMP came in the same way that you can with the Transcendence, because the EMP will just rip all of the shielding away from you. So the metagame is different in terms of how it relates to Lucio players. The Lucio always wants to use it after the EMP. So here, Escort comes in, and they're looking for an EMP where they've got positioning that's far enough back so that they can disengage after the EMP happens, and Waka Waka commits his ult. So they want to commit the ultimate, get a couple of picks, maybe on Void, Luffy, whoever manages to get caught, and they're aiming to leave Waka Waka alive so that he uses his sound barrier, but they still lose the fight. Or they don't lose the fight, but Lunatic-Hai are able to disengage and not have to use their own ultimates. So again, an amazing engage-disengage play from Lunatic-Hai. They come in, they're going to use the EMP here, but they're not going to focus Waka Waka. If they wanted to get the fight in 1, if they just wanted to clean sweep this fight and get checkpoint 2, they would focus Waka Waka here incredibly hard, and they would remove him from the fight. His sound barrier wouldn't be able to come up. They would be able to get the other picks probably, and they'd be able to have checkpoint 2. But then they'd be facing a sound barrier in the second fight, and they can't really full commit to the fight at this point because neither of their support ultimates are up. They've only got the MP. So they're going to leave Waka Waka alive here, focus the pick onto Void and Luffy. They managed to get Void, certainly. And Waka Waka, as the EMP fades, uses his sound barrier, but it's too late to save Void by a couple of seconds, actually. And he's concerned that they're going to full commit with support ults. He doesn't realize that they don't have the support ults up, and this is a bait play from Lunatic-Hai. And Lunatic-Hai just played this one perfectly. It's like poker genius here. So they come in, they leave Waka Waka alive, he comes back in with the sound barrier, and look how fast Lunatic-Hai get out of there. They're like wizards. They just evaporate. They get back, positioning so defensive for them immediately. No value can be taken from this sound barrier whatsoever. I'm just going to look at that again. Look how far forward they are with Zunba, Guido, Miro. Escort was also applying pressure around here as well. Toby and Jaehong are back, ready to disengage. Zunba and Miro have got their cooldowns ready. In comes the sound barrier, instantly out. They're just gone immediately. They know that they don't have the support ults to deal with it. They've got what they wanted, which was a trade of the EMP for the sound barrier and the DMAC onto Void as well. So he was forced to use his self-destruct to get back into this one, and now they can re-engage with both of their support ultimates against 0, and they can roll this one forwards. And here comes the Transcendence from Jaehong. If they can, they'll save the sound barrier as well. I think the sound barrier ends up getting forced here by Toby because, again, they absolutely want this second checkpoint. They have to get it, and they only have 5 seconds left. So the support ultimate usage there from Lunatic-Hai, perfectly fine. And now for the next checkpoint, as I said, it's very difficult for Kongdoo Panthera to defend this. They're going to be playing against an EMP, and even if they didn't, it's super difficult to defend right there. I mean, that's very easy for the attacking team, really. Just to end on a more funny note, have a look at Miro here. He's done so well in the fight, super clean engage, super clean disengage, absolutely clinical. Comes around here taking a huge amount of damage with the sound barrier. He's just tiptoeing on the line, manages to put his shield down, stays alive. Great plays, thinking to himself, oh, amazing. Managed to stay alive. We've captured the second point. We're going to do it, boys. We're going to win. We were 5 seconds away there from losing Apex, and we've managed to clutch it. We're gods. He's healing up. He's on 2/3 of his health. And he just sits there. He's like, no worries in the world. And Luffy's charged up a right click, and it just comes pinging down and melts him. Look how quickly he dies. He just one right click, and Luffy just hits all headshots or something, because he's at like 2/3 to 3/4 of his health, and Miro just goes like and dies. I thought that was brilliant, but obviously didn't make any difference. They're able to take it, and they're able to actually win the map in the end, tied up 3-3, and then they're able to win, obviously, the entire championship in the end, and cement their place in the Overwatch history books forever.